Dr. Han Du-won stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The dust sample from Mars was showing something impossible. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again at the microscope's live feed. The tiny structures he saw were too regular, too organized to be natural. Dr. Kim Ji-soo, please come here right away, he called out, his voice echoing through the quiet laboratory at Seoul National University Research Center. Dr. Kim Ji-soo walked quickly to his station, her lab coat swishing as she moved. What did you find, Do-won? Look at this, he said, pointing to the screen. This Mars dust sample. There are structures inside it, but they're not random. They look like buildings. Ji-soo leaned closer to the screen. The microscope showed tiny geometric shapes that looked like miniature cities. Some structures were rectangular, others were circular, and they were all connected by what appeared to be tiny roads. That's impossible, she whispered, but her eyes didn't leave the screen. How small are these structures? Each one is about the size of a human cell, Do-won answered. But that's not all. Watch this. He adjusted the microscope's focus. The image zoomed in on one of the structures. Inside, they could see movement. Tiny objects were moving in patterns that couldn't be explained by random motion. Are those vehicles? Ji-soo asked, her voice filled with wonder. I think so, Do-won said. And look at this. He moved the view to another area. Small dots were moving between the structures in organized lines. These could be their people. Both scientists stood in silence, understanding that they were looking at something that would change human history forever. They had just discovered an alien civilization, one that existed at a microscopic scale. Do-won reached for his phone with shaking hands. We need to call the research director right away. Within an hour, the quiet laboratory had turned into a buzzing center of activity. Research Director Lee Sun-ho arrived with a team of experts. They set up more equipment and began recording everything they could see. How did you find this? Director Lee asked, his eyes wide with amazement. I was studying the Mars dust samples from the latest mission, Do-won explained. We were looking for signs of ancient bacterial life. Instead, we found an active civilization. Ji-soo, who had been working at another computer, called out, Everyone, come here. I'm picking up energy signals from the sample. They're using some form of technology. The patterns are too regular to be natural. The team gathered around her computer. The screen showed waves of energy coming from the tiny city. The waves had clear patterns, like a language written in energy. They're trying to communicate, Ji-soo said softly. All this time, we've been looking for radio signals from distant stars. But there was intelligent life right here, just at a different scale. Director Lee took charge of the situation. We need to set up a containment field around the sample. The environment has to stay perfectly stable, and we need to figure out how to communicate with them without causing any harm. Do-won nodded in agreement. These beings are so small that even our smallest movements could cause disasters for them. One wrong breath could destroy their entire city. As the team worked through the night, they began to understand the huge responsibility they now had. Humans, who had always thought of themselves as small compared to the universe, were giants to this civilization. Their every movement had to be careful and planned. Tomorrow, we begin Project Giant, Director Lee announced. Our goal is to establish contact while ensuring their safety. This could be the most important discovery in human history, but it's also the most delicate. As Do-won looked at the tiny city one last time before going home, he thought about how the universe had just become both much bigger and much smaller at the same time. Humanity was no longer alone, but their new neighbors were living in a world almost too small to imagine. The first contact between humans and the microscopic civilization was about to begin, and no one knew what would happen next. 3 weeks after the discovery, the research center had transformed completely. The main laboratory now housed the most advanced quantum communication system ever built. Dr. Kim Ji-soo had been working day and night to create a way to talk with the microscopic civilization. The quantum translator is ready for testing, Ji-soo announced to the team. She looked tired but excited. We can now send signals at their scale without disrupting their environment. Dr. Han Do-won nodded as he carefully monitored the environmental controls around the Mars sample. The tiny city, which they now called New Mars City, had been placed in a special chamber that kept it completely stable. The government liaison, Lee Sun-ho, watched from behind a safety line. Remember, the whole world is waiting for news about first contact. But we must be careful. One wrong move could destroy their entire civilization. Ji-soo activated the quantum translator. Soft blue lights pulsed as it sent the first message, a simple pattern of mathematical sequences that any advanced civilization should recognize. The room fell silent as they waited. Minutes passed. Then suddenly, the computer screen lit up with a response. Numbers, perfectly arranged in sequence, came back to them. They understood. Ji-soo said, her voice full of excitement. They're responding using the same mathematical language. Over the next few hours, the exchange continued. The team worked to establish basic communication using mathematics and simple symbols. As they did, they learned that the microscopic beings called themselves the Microns. The Micron ambassador, who introduced herself as Pak Mi-rae, sent a message that the quantum translator converted to human language. We have long known of the giants who walk above our world. We saw your great machines come to the Red Planet. We waited and hoped for this day. Do-won read the message aloud to the team. Everyone in the room felt a shiver run down their spine. These tiny beings had been watching humanity's Mars missions, seeing them as enormous events in their sky. Ask them how long their civilization has existed, Director Lee suggested. Ji-soo sent the question through the translator. The answer surprised everyone. Our cities have stood for 1 million of your years. Mi-rae's response read, we exist in the dust of many worlds. Mars is just one of our homes. The implications were enormous. While humans had been evolving on Earth, advanced civilizations have been living in the dust beneath their feet. The universe was far more complex than anyone had imagined. As the day continued, they learned more about Micron society. They had advanced technology, but it worked very differently from human technology. They could travel between dust particles, building cities in the microscopic spaces of the solar system. We must prepare for a full diplomatic meeting, Lee Sun-ho said. But how do we meet with beings we can barely see? Ji-soo had an answer ready. We can use quantum imaging to project ourselves at their scale, and them at our scale. Like a video call, but crossing the size barrier. The team spent the next few days setting up the quantum imaging system. Finally, they were ready for the first face-to-face meeting with the Microns. The image that appeared on their screen showed a being that looked nothing like anything on Earth. Ambassador Mi-rae was beautiful in an alien way, with crystalline structures that caught the light and smooth surfaces that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Welcome, giants of Earth, Mi-rae said through the translator. We have much to learn from each other. Do-won looked at the amazing sight before them and smiled. Humanity had worried about being too small in the vast universe. Instead, they had found that they were giants to an entire civilization. It was just the beginning of an amazing partnership between two very different worlds. The age of human-Micron relations had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. Dr. Choi Da-hyun walked carefully through the specially designed observation room. As the team's cultural anthropologist, he had spent the last month studying Micron society. What he had learned was amazing. Their entire concept of time is different from ours, he explained to Dr. Han Do-won and Dr. Kim Ji-soo. What we see as a single day is like a year to them. They live their lives at a much faster pace. The three scientists watched the quantum imaging screen. It showed the inside of a Micron building, where their scientists were teaching human observers about their technology. The Micron scientist, Yoon Ta-min, moved his crystalline hands over a device that seemed to bend light itself. Our cities harvest energy from the movement of atoms, Ta Nin explained through the translator. Your smallest movements create huge amounts of power for us. Jisoo typed some calculations into her computer. That's incredible. They've found a way to use what we consider random particle movement as an energy source. In return, the human scientists shared information about their own world. The Microns were fascinated by the idea of rain, which to them would appear as massive spheres falling from above, each drop large enough to contain several of their cities. How do you survive such enormous events? Ambassador Myre asked, her crystalline form shimmering with curiosity. We build our structures to handle weather, Do-Won explained, just like you build yours to handle the movement of dust particles. The exchange of knowledge went beyond just science. Da-Hyun had discovered that Micron art was based on the manipulation of quantum states. They created beautiful patterns by changing the energy states of particles, making works of art that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Watch this, Ta Nin said, as he demonstrated their art. The quantum imaging screen showed waves of color and light that moved in impossible ways. It was like watching a rainbow dance at the atomic level. The humans shared their own art, music, paintings, and dance. The Microns were especially interested in human music. They could feel the vibrations of sound as massive waves of energy moving through their world. Your music creates patterns in our quantum field, Myre explained. When you play what you call classical music, our entire city feels the harmony. It's like being inside a living artwork. One day, Jisoo made an exciting discovery. She found that the Microns had their own form of writing, using patterns of quantum entanglement to record their history and stories. Each of their books is actually a series of entangled particles, she explained to the team. They read them by observing how the particles interact with each other. It's like they've turned quantum physics into literature. The cultural exchange brought unexpected challenges too. The team had to be careful about everything they did near the Micron city. Even turning on certain equipment could create devastating electromagnetic waves in their world. We're learning to move like giants in a world of delicate crystal, Da-Hyun said. Every action we take must be planned and careful. The Microns shared stories of their history, telling tales of how they had watched the planets form and change over millions of years. They had seen the first human settlements on Mars from their microscopic perspective, watching as enormous machines moved across what they called the upper world. As the month of cultural exchange came to an end, both species had learned valuable lessons about perspective and understanding. The humans had discovered that greatness didn't depend on size, and the Microns had learned that even giants could be gentle. Perhaps, Ambassador Myre said during one exchange, the true measure of civilization is not how large or small we are, but how well we understand each other. The team agreed. In learning about each other's cultures, both species had grown in ways they never expected. But their growing friendship was about to face its first real test. The crisis began on a quiet Tuesday morning. Dr. Kang Hae-jin was checking the environmental controls when she noticed a small change in the laboratory's air pressure. For humans, the change was too minor to notice. For the Microns, it was catastrophic. Emergency in the containment area, Hae-jin shouted, her fingers moving rapidly across the control panel. The pressure shift is affecting New Mars City. Dr. Han Do-won rushed to the quantum imaging screen. The view showed buildings swaying in what looked like a massive storm to the Microns. Their vehicles were being pushed off their microscopic roads by what seemed like hurricane-force winds to them. Send an emergency message to Ambassador Myre, Do-won ordered. Dr. Kim Jisoo was already at the quantum translator, sending warnings in the Micron language they had learned. The response came quickly. Our outer districts are experiencing severe damage, Myre reported. We need immediate assistance to stabilize our environment. The Micron city planner, Yoon Ta-min, sent detailed images of the destruction. Structures that had stood for thousands of years were being torn apart by the sudden change in air pressure. To the microns, it was like watching mountains crumble. "We need to fix this now," Hai-Jin said, her voice steady despite the emergency. "But if we change the pressure too quickly, it could make things worse." The team worked together, making tiny adjustments to the laboratory's environmental systems. They had to be extremely careful. One wrong move could destroy the entire micron civilization. Director Lee Sunho arrived at the laboratory, his face showing deep concern. "What caused this?" he asked. "A maintenance worker changed the building's air conditioning settings," Hai-Jin explained. They didn't know that even such a small change could affect the microns. Through the quantum imaging system, they could see micron emergency teams rushing to help their people. Their crystalline bodies glowed with emergency lights as they worked to save damaged structures and rescue those in danger. "We're deploying our quantum field stabilizers," Taimin reported, "but they can only help so much against changes this large." Jisoo had an idea. "What if we create a double-layered containment field? One layer for gross adjustments, and one for fine-tuning. It could prevent future disasters like this." The team quickly began implementing her suggestion. They worked for hours, carefully adjusting each layer of the new containment system. The microns helped by providing data about their needs and tolerances. Finally, after 6 tense hours, the crisis was under control. The micron city had suffered damage, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. More importantly, no lives had been lost. "This incident shows how fragile our relationship is," Ambassador Myre said during the emergency meeting that followed. "We exist in such different scales that simple actions by giants can threaten our entire world." Do-won nodded in agreement. "We need better safety protocols. Every person who works in this building must understand the consequences of their actions on your scale." The crisis had taught both species valuable lessons. The humans learned that they needed to be even more careful than they had thought. The microns learned that they needed better emergency systems to protect against the actions of their giant neighbors. "Perhaps," Hai-Jin suggested, "we should think of this as an opportunity. We can work together to create new technologies that will protect both our worlds." As the team began planning these new safety measures, they knew that their relationship with the microns had changed. They were no longer just scientists studying each other. They were now truly responsible for each other's well-being. The age of giants and microns had entered a new phase, one that would require even greater care and cooperation. Dr. Ba Jinwoo stood before the new laboratory equipment, carefully adjusting the controls of what his team called the scale bridge. After the crisis, the humans and microns had started their most ambitious project yet, creating technology that could work at both scales. "The quantum harmonizers are aligned," Jinwoo announced to the team. "We're ready to begin the first test." Dr. Kim Jisoo monitored the readings on her screen, while Dr. Han Do-won watched the micron side through the quantum imaging system. The micron chief scientist, Ryu Hae-Newell, stood ready with her team in their city below. "Our quantum receivers are prepared," Hae-Newell reported through the translator. "We can begin the energy transfer whenever you're ready." The scale bridge was designed to allow both species to share energy and information directly. If it worked, it would change everything about how they work together. Jinwoo took a deep breath and activated the system. Blue light flowed through the quantum harmonizers, creating a connection between the human and micron scales. The laboratory hummed with energy. "Energy flow is stable," Jisoo reported, watching the readings carefully. "The quantum field is maintaining coherence between scales." In the micron city, Hae-Newell's crystalline form glowed as she monitored their end of the system. "We're receiving the energy successfully. Our converter is transforming it to our scale without loss." The team watched in amazement as the scale bridge created a perfect flow of energy and data between their two worlds. It was like building a highway between two universes that existed at different sizes. "Now for the real test," Jinwoo said. He placed a small object, a simple cube, on the transfer plate. The scale bridge began to scan it, creating a perfect copy at the micron scale. "The test object has arrived," Newell reported excitedly. Every detail is perfect, just much smaller. We can study it properly now. The success of the scale bridge opened new possibilities. The microns could now examine human technology at their own scale, while humans could better understand the intricate quantum machines the microns built. This is just the beginning, Do-One said, looking at the glowing equipment. Think about what else we could share and learn from each other. The next few weeks were filled with experiments. The humans sent down small samples of their materials and technology. The microns sent up examples of their quantum devices, which the scale bridge enlarged to human size. One day, Newell made an exciting discovery. We found a way to combine our quantum technology with your larger scale engineering, she announced. Together, we could build machines that work across all scales of existence. Jin Wu and his team worked with the microns to develop these new hybrid technologies. They created devices that could harness both the power of quantum effects and the strength of large-scale structures. It's like we're writing a symphony, Ji-Soo said one evening, watching the scale bridge at work. Each species playing its own part, but creating something beautiful together. The collaboration led to unexpected breakthroughs. The microns learned how to build stronger cities using principles from human architecture. The humans learned how to make their machines more efficient using micron quantum techniques. We're entering a new age of technology, Newell said during one of their daily meetings. One where size doesn't matter, because we can work at all scales. As the team celebrated their success, they knew that this was just the beginning. The scale bridge had opened up endless possibilities for both species to grow and learn together. The age of divided scales was ending. A new era of unified technology was beginning. Dr. Song Minji stared at the data from the Jupiter probe with wide eyes. After the success of the scale bridge, humans had sent special microscopic sensors to other planets. What they found changed everything they knew about life in the solar system. Every planet has them, she announced to the gathered team. The microns aren't just on Mars. They've built cities in the dust of every world we've checked. Dr. Im Dong-hyuk, the space expedition leader, leaned forward to look at her screen. The images showed microscopic cities hidden in the dust of Jupiter's moons, in Saturn's rings, and even in the harsh environment of Mercury. Each planet has different types of micron societies, Minji explained. They've adapted to their environments over millions of years. Through the quantum imaging system, Ambassador Myray watched with the human scientists. Yes, she said, we have always been a species of many worlds. Each dust grain can hold a city, and each planet offers billions of places to build. The laboratory was filled with excitement as data poured in from across the solar system. The microns in Jupiter's dust had developed special crystal structures to handle the intense radiation. Those in Saturn's rings had created beautiful cities that moved with the ice particles. But how do they travel between planets? Dong-hyuk asked. Miray's crystalline form sparkled as she explained. We ride what you call solar wind. To us, the streams of particles from your sun are like great rivers between worlds. Dr. Han Do-Won worked with the micron scientists to understand more about their space travel. They can enter a special state, he explained to the team, where they become almost one with the particles around them. Then they flow through space like cosmic dust. The discoveries continued as more probes sent back data. They found micron libraries of knowledge stored in the patterns of cosmic rays. Their civilizations had recorded the history of the solar system at a scale too small for humans to see before. Look at this, Minji said one morning, pointing to new data from Venus. They found signs of other microscopic species. We're not just dealing with one civilization. There's a whole microscopic galaxy living among us. The team sent probes farther out into the solar system. Each one confirmed the same thing. Life existed at scales humans had never thought to look at before. The universe wasn't empty. It was full of life, just at different sizes. We need to rethink everything we know about space exploration, Dong-hyuk said. Every time we send a ship to another world, We're not just exploring empty space. We're traveling through inhabited territory. The Microns helped the humans understand this new view of the solar system. They shared maps of microscopic trade routes between planets, showed them hidden cities in asteroid dust, and revealed ancient histories written in quantum states. Your giant ships pass through our worlds like mountains floating through space, Mayray explained. We've learned to build our cities away from your usual paths, but we've always watched your explorations with interest. As the team processed all this new information, they realized that space exploration would never be the same. Future missions would need to consider both the giant and microscopic scales of the universe. We're not alone in space, Minji said to her colleagues. We never were. We just needed to learn where to look. The age of space exploration had entered a new chapter, one where humans and Microns would explore the stars together, each species helping the other see the universe in new ways. The United Nations Hall fell silent as Na Yunseo walked to the podium. As Earth's first ambassador to the Micron civilizations, she carried a huge responsibility. Through the quantum imaging system next to her, Bak Ju-won, the Micron diplomatic advisor, stood ready to address the human leaders. Today we begin formal diplomatic relations between our civilizations, Yunseo announced. This is not just about one Micron city on Mars anymore. We are dealing with societies that span our entire solar system. The quantum imaging screen showed Ju-won's crystalline form glowing with official colors. For millions of years, we have lived alongside giants, he said through the translator. Now we must learn to live together as equals. The challenges were complex. Human space missions had unknowingly damaged Micron cities throughout the solar system. The Microns wanted protection for their worlds, while humans needed to continue space exploration. Dr. Kim Ji-soo presented the first proposed solution. We've developed sensors that can detect Micron cities, she explained to the assembled leaders. All future space missions can carry these sensors to avoid causing harm. The Micron representatives agreed with this plan, but they had concerns of their own. Our people need free movement between worlds, Ju-won explained. Your ships and satellites must not block the solar winds we use for travel. The negotiations continued for days. Both sides worked to create rules that would protect everyone's interests. They called it the Giant Micron Space Treaty. The solar system is big enough for both our peoples, Yunseo said during one difficult session. We just need to learn how to share it properly. One major challenge was communication. Even with the quantum translators, cultural differences made some concepts hard to explain. The Microns thought in terms of quantum states and particle flows, while humans thought in terms of physical objects and visible space. Think of it this way, Ju-won suggested to the human delegates. You see a rock floating in space. We see a world with millions of possible cities. Both views are true. We must respect both perspectives. The treaty started taking shape. Humans would create special corridors for their spaceships, leaving other areas free for Micron travel. The Microns would share their knowledge of the solar system's quantum paths, helping humans navigate more efficiently. This is more than just rules about space travel, Dr. Han Du-won explained to the delegates. We're creating the foundation for two very different species to work together. Then came the question of trade. What could giants and microscopic beings offer each other? The answer came from their shared research. Micron quantum technology combined with human large-scale engineering could solve problems neither species could handle alone. Together, we can build things that were impossible before, Ji-soo said. The scale bridge is just the beginning. Finally, after weeks of talks, the treaty was ready. It recognized both species' rights to explore and inhabit the solar system. It set up rules for communication, trade, and scientific cooperation. This is a historic moment, Yunseo said as she prepared to sign the treaty. We are the first giants to make peace with the quantum realm. Ju-won's crystalline form glowed with agreement, and we are the first quantum beings to join hands with the giants. Together, we will reach farther than either of us could alone. The signing of the giant Micron Space Treaty marked the beginning of a new age. The solar system was no longer just a place of empty space and lifeless planets. It was a shared home for beings of all sizes. 1 year after the signing of the giant Micron Space Treaty, the solar system looked very different. The first joint human Micron space mission was ready to launch from Earth's surface. Dr. Han Du-won watched the massive rocket on the launch pad, knowing that inside it carried thousands of Micron explorers in specially designed chambers. All systems are ready, Dr. Kim Ji-soo reported from the control room. The scale bridge technology is stable. Our Micron colleagues are secure in their quantum-protected environments. Through the quantum imaging system, they could see the Micron expedition leader, Ryu Hae-nul, preparing her team. The mission's goal was ambitious. They would be the first joint expedition to explore the outer solar system. Our quantum sensors are active, Hae-nul announced. We're ready to view the universe from both scales at once. The rocket launched perfectly, carrying both giant and microscopic explorers into space. It was designed with special corridors that allowed the Microns to move freely through their own scale, while the humans operated the large-scale systems. Dr. Song Min-ji monitored the data as they passed through the asteroid belt. The Microns are already detecting things we never could, she said. They found quantum signatures of ancient civilizations in the asteroid dust. The human Micron crew worked together in ways that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. When they encountered problems, they solved them by combining their different perspectives. There's a radiation storm ahead, Dr. Im Dong-hyuk warned one day. But before the humans could worry, their Micron colleagues had already created quantum shields using their technology, protecting the entire ship. The most exciting discovery came near Jupiter. The Microns detected signs of a new type of quantum life in the giant planet storms. Using the scale bridge, both species could study these mysterious beings together. We're not just exploring space anymore, Du-won said to his team. We're exploring every level of existence, from the quantum scale to the cosmic. Ambassador Myray, watching from Earth through the quantum link, sent a message to all crews. This mission proves what we hoped, that giants and quantum beings can do more together than apart. The success of the mission led to more joint projects. Humans and Microns began building new types of settlements throughout the solar system. These places were designed to let both species live and work together, with areas for both scales of existence. Look how far we've come, Ji-soo said one day, watching a quantum image of a new joint colony on Mars. A year ago, we were afraid of accidentally destroying their cities. Now we're building them together. The children of both species grew up learning about each other. Human schools taught about quantum civilizations, while Micron children learned about the giants who lived above. They began to see the universe as a place of endless scales, all equally important. The future will be different, Hae-nul said during the mission's final report. Our children will never know a time when giants and quantum beings lived apart. They will explore the stars together, seeing all the wonders at every scale. As the first joint mission returned to Earth, plans were already being made for more adventures. The next expedition would go even further, past Saturn, past Neptune, into the deep space where no one, giant or microscopic, had gone before. The age of separation was over. The age of unified exploration had begun. And somewhere in the vast universe, other civilizations of different scales waited to be discovered, ready to add their own perspectives to the growing community of spacefaring species.